Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to This or That. This is a decluttering series that I like to do here on the channel. I guess that's the easiest way to explain it. But if you're new here, first of all, welcome to my channel and welcome to this video. I like to keep a curated collection of decks, and with that in mind, I often keep an eye out for where I might have redundancies in my collection. So where similar things might be doing a similar job, or not similar things might be doing a similar job. And so what I like to do is sort of put them up head to head and try to figure out, do I want them both? Do I want neither? Do I want just one? And that is the whole premise behind This or That. Leading up to this video, though, I like to ask my community, so those of you who are subscribed will have seen the polls come up in your subscription feed on YouTube, where I ask you what decision you would make if you were in my shoes between every single pairing. And that's a lot of fun because I get to see sort of what the community vibe is, and then I also just make my own decision. But it's kind of fun to do a bit of compare and contrast. That is what This or That is all about, and I am super stoked to get into it with you today because I have a ton of decks, some of which I know are going to be controversial, and these videos often are because, of course, we all love what we love. And, you know, some of you are like, why are you pairing these two exactly? So let's get into it. My very first pairing for today's video is, yeah, we're just starting off with a bang, aren't we? The Prisma Visions Tarot by James R. Eads versus the Shimmering Veil Tarot by Scylla Conway. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pop up the current results at the time I'm filming this of the community poll. So as you can see, as of this moment, the community favors the Shimmering Veil Tarot, that's this one, over Prisma Visions by 60%. So 60% of you would keep the Shimmering Veil, the other 40% of you would keep Prisma Visions. So let me share a little bit of my thoughts about why I put these two head to head. For me, they both feel like they go into this artistic realm that is different from a lot of the other things in my collection. So I wouldn't say that their art styles are similar. So let's just take a look. So the Prisma Visions has this almost, to me, it's almost like Van Gogh-like. I mean, to me, it's very, it gives me Starry Night vibes, right? There's a lot of this, I don't know what this art technique is called, but there's a lot of, it's not pointillism, but it feels like pictures made up of, is this called Impressionist art? Somebody's going to correct me, I'm sure. I don't know what it is. But, oh, we've got reversals in here. Our hanged man is actually not upside down. Okay, anyway, I don't know what this art style is, but it's got this very kind of otherworldly kind of feel. And so it's got a sort of dreamscapey almost concept to it. Oh, the unicorn and the Knight of Pentacles. I forgot about that. Okay, anyways, so that's the art style of the Prisma Visions. The Shimmering Veil, which is much newer in my collection, is not at all that same art style, but it's very dreamlike and ethereal and soft and kind of blendy. I don't know how else to describe it. These decks, even though they don't look anything alike, I would not in any way say these are the same. They give me similar feelings, except that I find that I connect instantly with the visuals and the art style on the Shimmering Veil Tarot. And for whatever reason, in the Prisma Visions, I don't connect. And confession time, this is my second time owning this deck. So I owned it the first time when it was glossy, and then when it came out in this matte version, I got it as an add-on to another Kickstarter for James R. Eads' Cosma Visions. I think, here's my issue with this style. I think it's stunning. There's nothing about, like, this is one of my favorite cards of all time. Like, it's so beautiful. But I won't work with the deck just because I like one card. And the other really cool thing about this deck that I just can never get over is how the minor arcana form these panoramas when you put the cards side by side, but like I don't actually ever do that. It's not like that's a thing that I use in readings. And I just never, I don't use it. I don't use it. And I decluttered it the first time and I thought, well, I'll use it more if it's matte. And it turns out that's not the case. There's something about this artwork where I feel like when I look at it from a distance, I get it. But as soon as I have it in my hands as a physical deck, I just don't reach for it. Now, this is the edition that has the Tiny Elephants card, and there were a bunch of other bonus cards that came as part of the Kickstarter, which I know makes this really special because there's like all these others. But there was a little issue where these are not the exact same size. They're actually cut just a little bit smaller than the deck, so I can't really shuffle them in. So they just sort of sit in the back, being sad and by themselves. For a collector, I feel like this is a really cool thing, but I don't, like I don't know, this must be a guidebook correction. there. Anyway, the point is I got this in and I haven't used it. It's literally hung on my to be worked with rack. And at no point have I been like, yeah, I'm really excited to work with the Prismavisions, which is pretty telling to me that this is not a deck meant to stay in my collection. And I'm kind of embarrassed about it because I did repurchase it. But I really thought the glossy versus matte was my issue. And it turns out, no, as beautiful as this artwork is, there's just something about the quality of it that I don't connect with. So I'm pretty sure that this is going to go, and this is going to, and of course the Shimmering Veil, which I have just bonded to instantly. This deck is definitely staying in my collection, but I think having this makes me feel better in some strange way about not keeping the Prismavisions. Now with that said, and this is just a common disclaimer in these videos, when I decide I'm going to let something go, it really goes into purgatory, which is, I have a drawer, I put my decks there until I know I'm ready to let them go, and when I'm ready to let them go, then I will usually pop them up on a trade list, usually in my own Facebook group, the Supportive Tarot Facebook group. That's where I'll usually list them. But I don't do that until I feel like I'm ready. This one, I'll probably be ready pretty quick, just saying. But in any case, this one's going to go and Prismavisions is going to stay. So our piles are starting that way. Okay. Okay. The next pairing on my list is the Hilda Tarot next to the Affirmators Tarot. And I'm sure some of you guys are going to be like, what the heck? Like, these decks have nothing to do with one another. Like, you're not wrong, okay? But I will explain, I promise. So these are the two decks that are going head to head. The Affirmators Tarot versus the Hilda Tarot. So let me pop the poll up on the screen. So this one bounced around a bunch, but right now the poll is sitting at Hilda Tarot. 53% of you would keep this deck, and 47% of you would keep the Affirmators Tarot. Let me talk about why I paired these, because they look nothing alike. You'll see this a lot in these videos, actually. Sometimes there'll be a lot of similarity. Sometimes you'll be like, there's none. But here's where I land with both of these. Neither of these are both decks that I feel like hit a very specific energy for me. So they're both uplifting in a way. They both are great for giving you a boost on a bad day, you know. The Affirmators Tarot is really a lot of fun. I gushed about this. I did a full walkthrough of this one. It's on this really lovely kind of matte linen cardstock, so it's really lovely to shuffle even though it's huge. The characters are really funny and fun. There's other things I could have put this up against, really. Now that I'm looking at them, like this could have gone up against the Curious Creatures Tarot, which gives me similar funny vibes. But what I really love about this deck, and it may have even been in one of these This or That's before, and just barely stayed by the skin of its teeth. But it's not really the cards that I'm so bonded to. It's the art. It's the writing style of the guidebook, which is just delightful and kind of funny. The author of this deck, Susie Barrett, got a great sense of humor. It's got this weird like hardcover that has, I don't know if you can see that, but it's kind of like creased weirdly, which is annoying, but it's a stitch bound like nice guidebook. But the write-ups in here are very like encouraging and uplifting, but I already have the Affirmators Oracle for that, which is going nowhere. And so I don't actually reach for this when I need a boost. But the deck that I was thinking of in my collection that I do kind of reach for when I need a boost, but then again, I don't know that I use this one all that often either, is the Hilda Tarot. Now this deck, I believe, is currently out of print. It has come out for reprints a few times. I don't know if it will come out again. But Hilda is a character from, she's like a pinup model. I'm really bad at like the history. But I remembered seeing her ads. I feel like I must have seen them like at my grandma's house all the time, or like pieces of her art or something. But there's a lot of humor and cheekiness, and like Hilda's kind of clumsy and kind of gets herself into these predicaments and kind of these little foibles and things, and it's quite delightful. Like, she's a delightful character. Plus, she's got this kind of body positive aspect, and I love her delightful red hair. I have, I'll be honest, toyed with whether or not to keep this in my collection, because I feel like this is definitely something that it feels very indulgent, because it's not the kind of thing I would reach for to read for others, really. Not unless it was specifically requested, because it can be very one note in its sort of aesthetic, right? And especially if you are familiar with this character, you might be like, why are you reading with me, like for me with this like strange deck? You know what I mean? But Hilda's delightful, and she reminds me of a different time, and I don't know, I've toyed with the idea of using this deck for like ancestor work. Just, I don't know, there's like some things there that I just think are super cute and delightful. And actually recently I had a really interesting experience where she specifically reminds me of a particular departed loved one and guide that I've worked with in the past. And so she may end up being reserved for that purpose, but I can't see myself parting with this deck right this minute. I feel like there's a lot of work we still have to do together. And plus, I really, really love the Peggy bag match. Like, I mean, hi. Like, that's not a reason to keep a deck. We've had this conversation. I think I'm going to keep my keeping decks bagged and my going decks not. But I think it's time for me to let go of affirmators. I've really enjoyed my time with this deck, but I think it is time for it to go. This next one, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about having these. We're gonna get into it though. Okay, so I have here the Joie de Vivre Tarot by Paulina Fay or Paulina Cassidy. I've seen her go by both. It's Paulina Cassidy on the Joie de Vivre. And I also have here the Phantasma Tarot by the same creator. I'll just keep their bag here. All right, let me pop up the poll. So this one was very torn, but a slight edge goes to Phantasma Tarot, with 53% of you saying you would keep this one and 47% of you saying you would keep this one. But I feel like the comments were kind of heated on some of these particular decks. So Yatola, I'm so sorry if I said your name wrong, says, why not both? Artwork is very distinctive, but the vibe totally different. I love the big borderless cards of Phantasma Tarot though. I agree. I think, yeah, there's a lot to be said for both decks for sure. Here's the thing. Okay, so we're just going to take a look. I don't know. I don't know. The reason I have these in this or that, oh my gosh, I'm stumbling on my words. The reason I have these together is because I'm just not sure I need two decks with this vibe, right? The wonderful thing about the Phantasma Tarot is that it is bigger, and let me zoom you in so you can see this better. So Phantasma is larger cards. They are borderless, so I feel like you get more real estate, you know, for the artwork, which is great. Phantasma, for some reason, feels a little tiny bit more readable out of the box. Now, I did study the Joie de Vivre. Like, I spent a full month of dedicated time with this deck, so I did really bond with it. And these are set in very different settings, even though they look like they could exist together, right? Of the two, I would say that if I was pressed, if I were cornered, I think I do prefer Phantasma. But the Joie de Vivre is special, and I do kind of actually like its borders, and it shuffles so beautifully. It's one of these, is it a US Games, I think? But it's US Games, but it's their older cardstock, which was more like a Los Scarabæos cardstock, and it's just really lovely. This also, I don't mind the US Games stiffer cardstock that much. This one shuffles nicely too, and I do like how it's borderless. But looking at them side by side, I'm like, these could totally exist in the same world, and I think they would even actually read really well together. I will say Phantasma has a lot more of a like animal or fantastic creatures kind of feeling. Obviously, that's sort of its vibe, whereas Joie de Vivre is more like almost circusy. But I'm looking at them both, and I'm like, I like them both. I don't think I need to let go of either of them. I wasn't sure. I thought I was maybe going to let go of Joie de Vivre, but now that I'm looking at them together, I'm like, no, they're different enough. I feel like there could come a day, but I really do find them both absolutely, absolutely delightful. Like, really. The neat thing about Joie de Vivre, if you ever get a chance to scoop it up, if you're drawn to it, like, don't ever feel any pressure, obviously. But if you're ever drawn to it, the interesting thing is that all the characters in the cards are named after their energies. So I go over it in a lot more detail in the video where I did a full review of working with this deck for a month. So I'll try to remember to link that up in the cards for you, but it is a really, really fun and cool concept for a deck, and it is a really happy deck. So yeah, that's staying. And the Phantasma Tarot, I really love it. I've worked with it. I've really enjoyed working with it. It does have this very dreamlike feel. I could definitely see using this deck actually for dream work in a way, or for spirit work. It just feels like it goes into this other realm. I mean, Joie de Vivre does that too, but this feels more mysterious or more ethereal in its way. And I really do like the guidebook in this one, but this is also staying. So Phantasma and Joie de Vivre are both staying. Next up, it's a Lenormand showdown, and we have the Celtic Lenormand and James R. Eads Green Glyphs Lenormand here. All right, let me pop up the poll. So as of the time of this filming, 66% of you would keep Celtic, and only 34% of you would keep Green Glyphs. Now, these are not put together because they have similar vibes, but they are put together because they're both Lenormand decks, and I'm trying to pare down my Lenormand collection because I just don't need a ton of variety in that space. There is some things that these decks may do similarly. So let me see if I can verbalize this. So Green Glyphs does have a very particular aesthetic, and I do really like it. I like that you have a person card, you have a gentleman 1 and gentleman 2, you have a person 1 and a person 2, and then you also have, I don't know if there is also a lady. Yes, you have a lady and you have a lady too. So this is a really cool thing that it does. Let's see if I can find any other, my other lady card. I'm trying to remember if there's any other customizable things in this copy. There's also some really special cards in here that have metallic foiling, so that was one of them, the dog card. I really like this, and it's kind of funny. Oh, I love the stars card. There's our other lady. So we have lady 1 and lady 2, and then we have the rest of these cards. And I think there is also an alternate, I believe there was an albatross or something instead of the cross card. So you could kind of customize the deck to really suit. What I love that there's all these options for people. I think that's really handy, particularly that there's a non-gendered person 1 and person 2 card. I think that's amazing. So you can pair these up in any combination. You can put extra ones in if you want to do a reading with extra ones. So this really sort of fits the bill as far as having customizable cards. But the other thing I really love about this is that the art is really simple and it's really, really smart. And I know this isn't a review, so I'm going to have to pick up the pace. But James R. Eads does some really cool stuff with color here, where green cards are like yeses, reds are stops or no's, yellows are caution, that sort of thing. So there's some really cool things and a wonderful guidebook with this deck, and I just think it's pretty great. So I feel like this is a really, really good workhorse style Lenormand deck. But I haven't really had a chance to work with it that much because I've had so many different Lenormand decks in my collection for some time, and it's just kind of gotten a little bit out of control. So that is the Green Glyphs. Now the Celtic Lenormand, I mean, I recommend this set all the time for beginners because it is mass market, and the guidebook it comes with is really, really well done. And one of the things it does especially well is for every card, it gives you keywords, playing card association, a description of the card, the general meaning. Then it gives you like how you might interpret this card in spiritual readings, dark and light, or for spell use. There's an affirmation, and there's also deities you could explore with each card, which seeing that now, I'm like, what am I thinking? Can I actually let this go? The other thing that's cool about this, I love the size, and this is illustrated by Will Worthington, who also illustrated the Wildwood Tarot and the Druidcraft Tarot. It's really, really beautiful, but the symbols stand out. They're very clear. I really do love this. You know what, actually, I'm looking at this and realizing is I need to let this stay. I need to let this stay, and I think this is the deck. I think I need to let go of my first ever, I think I put it in a previous this or that. I think I need to let go of a different deck instead. Hold on, but let me show you what's in the bottom, because this one has a ton of things you can customize with, much like the Green Glyphs. So there's a different rider you can use. There's a winter tree, so you've got a holly tree that you can use in the wintertime and an oak tree. You've also got a transformative version of the snake card you can use if you want to work with that style of a meaning. You've got 3 different kinds of birds. So you have the owls, like you see here on the cover of the book. Then you've also got chickens, or you've got songbirds. Extra different people cards here. And you could use a cat instead of the dog. So these are all customizable options for your deck that I just keep in the bottom there. This is really wonderful. I don't know what I'm thinking. You know, I need to let go of the other one. Okay, hold on. I'm going to just plot twist. Hold, please. I ended up saving this one. This is the Gilded Reverie. This is what I learned Lenormand on. I saved this in a previous this or that. This is a Ciro Marchetti Lenormand, and it is really, really beautiful. And I kept it because it's so visually rich. And it's what I learned on, but there are no customizable options, and the cards are quite big. It is really beautiful, and it's very recognizable to me because, again, this is the one that I learned on. So there was like a nostalgia piece, right? But I feel like the Celtic actually fits my needs so much better with its customizable cards. It's still very visually rich. So I get that option to have a really visually rich Lenormand deck in a Celtic style, which is very fitting to me personally. And yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So plot twist. Like, I knew I wasn't going to let go of Green Glyphs. I was pretty sure. It was this one that I was thinking might have to go. But actually, I'm going to keep the Celtic Lenormand and the Green Glyphs, and I'm going to let go of Gilded Reverie. It's time. Okay, our next pairing hopefully will be less painful. Let's see. So we have the Cosmic Whispers rune deck. And calling this a deck seems wrong somehow. I'll talk more about that in a moment. But Cosmic Whispers versus the Runic Odyssey Oracle, which is also based on runes. All right, let me pop up the poll. So as of the time of filming, 65% of you would keep the Runic Odyssey, and only 35% of you would keep Cosmic Whispers. Now, Cosmic Whispers and I have spent a lot of quality time together. Now, I think this pairing is pretty obvious. These are both rune decks. The reason that these are up against each other is because I have a thing I like to do in my client readings where I like to pull a rune, and I prefer working with a rune card because I don't work with runes so crazy often that like they're really embedded. So for me, I like a rune card because often it has something to remind me what the meaning of the card is. I like working with runes at the beginning of the readings. Not all of my client readings, but I do it with a lot of them, just to get sort of big picture energy, sort of big themes. And Cosmic Whispers was such a special deck, and I used it exclusively for this purpose for a long time. But like you can tell, right? Like this is not, these aren't cards. These are like, they're something like 700 GSM or something. Like it's wood. It's wood. So these are like big tiles, and they are aesthetically really, really beautiful, and I've had them for a long time, and I've used them a lot, and they've held up really, really well. However, they're kind of monochromatic, and visually, I feel like they're beautiful on the table. Like you can tell, they catch the light, and they're really, really pretty. However, they don't give me anything to think about or work with besides the shape of the rune. It's a very repetitive design. They're luxurious. They're wonderful. I love these like sort of gold, flashy, blingy backs. I mean, they're really, really beautiful. But I've worked with them for a long, long time, and I just kind of got bored. And so I stopped doing the practice entirely. And that is until I got the Runic Odyssey Oracle, which this came out, I feel like this year. I didn't back it on Kickstarter. But when it started shipping, Danny and Dustin were talking about it, and I kind of fell in love. And the guidebook for this, I mean, are you kidding? There is a guidebook for the Cosmic Whispers deck as well, but I don't really use the guidebook that much, but I feel like with this, I really can. I can dip into it if I want. This is a bilingual deck, so I believe it's French and English. But it's easy to shuffle, which is great. It has the runes, but if you look, and I'll zoom you in, here we have Rido, and Rido, it has two keywords, movement and travel, which is wonderful. I love that there's keywords. There's an elemental glyph here. Sometimes there's an astrological reference, so here we have Sagittarius, and we have a ship in the background. And I feel like I just get a lot of information about the rune in that way. And I also really enjoy that there are these moon phases mixed into the deck, because I like, a moon phase also gives us a really great big picture energy to work with. So I feel like between the moon phases and the various runes, like here we have Iwaz, and we have these beautiful butterflies, and the keywords are transformation and renewal, and we see Scorpio here, and here it's got two elements, it's got all four elements actually highlighted. So I feel like it's just everything I could want is on this card, right? There's a graphic element, there's the rune shape itself, it tells us what it's in, the name of it, keywords, like it just ticks all my boxes. It just turned out to be my perfect rune deck. And so this is the one I've now been using when I feel like reaching for a rune card for a client reading, and it's been working really, really well in practice. Beautiful backs. So this one has replaced Cosmic Whispers for me personally. So I'm going to be keeping Runic Odyssey, and I'm going to be letting go of Cosmic Whispers. I think this is a really unique thing, but for me, holding on to it, knowing I'm not going to reach for it, and as fun as these tiles were, I will say, like, and they do shuffle fine. Like, you grab a little handful of them and you just kind of like mix them up, or I liked to, and I often actually would fan them out. Let me zoom you back out. This is much more satisfying zoomed out. But I would fan them, and then I would feel and draw one, right? Which is a wonderful way to work with these. They're so sturdy, and like, yeah, they're really, really unique, and I was over the moon to get them, use them. Like I said, I use them a lot. They hold up really, really well because, of course, they're really, really solid. They're not paper at all. And yeah, so anyways, enough waffling. That's going to go. It doesn't have a box, so it's going to stay in its bag and go into the going pile. Our next pairing is the Threadbound Oracle by Cedar McLeod up against the Believe in Your Own Magic Oracle by Amanda Lovelace. So let me pop up the poll. So at the time of filming, 60% of you would keep the Threadbound Oracle. Only 40% would keep Believe in Your Own Magic. The reason I paired these together, or up against each other, is they both have a sort of fantasy. Can we just pause for a moment every time I pull out this deck and just appreciate the packaging? It looks like a book. It's themed after books. You open it, it still feels like a book. Like, it's so perfectly fitted to the box. The guidebook looks like the front page of the end papers or whatever. And then the cards. Oh, anyways. And it's like matte linen, and I just, clearly I have a preference here. Okay. So this is really great. It has a wonderful system. I was talking about why I paired them. Let me do that first. So they both have this magical feeling. They both feel a little bit modern, but a little bit magical in their way, right? They both feel like they exist in a fantasy world. And I love that about these. That's kind of where the comparing ends, because after that, I realized that I want to love the Believe in Your Own Magic, and I did love it. I don't want to say I didn't love it. I did love it. It came to me with this bow that just drives me crazy. Do you see? It's like, it's bowed. I don't know what it is. It's something about the cardstock. I don't know. The thing about this is I adore the artwork, and it's very body affirming for curvy bodies, for plus size bodies. It feels modern and diverse in that way, and it makes me happy. And I really like Amanda Lovelace's poetry, and this reminds me of her poetry, which gives me all the good feelings. But here's the problem. One of the things I've realized about Amanda Lovelace's poetry is that it speaks to a very raw, wounded part of me. And that part loves to feel validated in my pain, right? Sure, it feels good to kind of go, somebody sees me. It feels really nice. But when I draw cards from this deck, I feel like it's constantly trying to lift me out of a funk. So it almost feels like it's not speaking to me at all if I'm like, I'm fine though right now. Like, I feel fine. I'm happy. And then I get a card that implies that I should be guarded or stand up for myself or step into my power. Now, I feel like if stepping into your power is something you're still really new to, or you need the boost, or you want the boost to be reminded on how to do that and how to really center yourself. But I've been doing this work for a long time, and the reality is I just don't reach for decks to give me that lift 99% of the time. 99% of the time I'm doing that for myself, right? And then I go to the cards to sort of almost the other way around, like to kind of kick my butt a little bit. And this deck is so affirming that actually it ends up feeling more like an affirmation or a pep talk deck. And I don't often feel like I need a pep talk from my cards. So it ends up falling flat. And it also, I will say, feels, I love the artwork, I really do. It ends up feeling a little bit young. And I'm having a harder time relating to that nowadays. Which is not to say I feel old, but I don't feel, like these characters. They don't feel as relatable to me anymore, both energetically and also aesthetically. So this one I feel like is not for me, at least not anymore. So this one, I have a box for it somewhere, but for now I don't have it, so it's going to stay in its bag and go into the going pile. The Threadbound Oracle, I feel like, does such a beautiful job of being flexible as a deck. I feel like because it's got a system, it's got keywords on the cards, it's got a ton of great diversity in it, it's got fun themes and beautiful art, and I really like it. I feel like I can pull it out and use it next to more modern decks. I can use it on its own. It's very tarot-like in its way, and I love that about it. I don't reach for it as much as I wish I would, and I hope that I will reach for it more often now that I don't have the Numinous Tarot, which sounds funny, but I feel like once I got the Numinous Tarot, I almost felt like I had to use this with the Numinous, and then I wouldn't think of using it on its own. But before I got the Numinous, I used to use this on its own. Do you know what I'm saying? Does that ever happen to you where you have a deck, a couple decks by creator, and then they kind of get magnetized to one another and you have a hard time seeing them as individuals after that? That kind of happened to me. And I love this deck, and I love it. I was excited about this in a way that I wasn't excited about the other deck. And I'm excited to have this all on its own again. Plus, again, another very satisfying bag match. But anyway, keeping the Threadbound Oracle, letting go of Believe in Your Own Magic. Next, we have a couple of minis going head-to-head. So actually, I have a couple pairs of minis going head-to-head. So this first pair is my original trimmed copy of the Llewellyn Tarot. Next to, look how cute it is, next to the Notorious JBG by our very own Peekaboo Rose. So this is such a satisfying deck size. I really do like this deck size. I truly, truly do. I'll be honest with you. I have not, they're very slidey. These are linen, which, points for that. Oh, wait. Hold on. So these are the two decks. Stay. These are the two decks I'm trying to decide between. Okay. Stay. I'm going to put the poll up while the deck slowly slides. So as of the time of this pairing, 77% of you would keep the Llewellyn Tarot and 23% of you would keep the Notorious JBG. But I would argue that a lot of you just haven't heard of this one. That's what I'm going to argue. I could be totally wrong. Actually, let's peek at the comments and see. So Len says, I voted Llewellyn because that deck is absolutely essential for me, whereas JBG's artwork gives me the heebie-jeebies just a little bit. That said, I can't wait to hear how you view these decks as similar because I've honestly never thought to compare them before. Yeah, they're not similar. They're just the same size. And I don't need tons and tons of decks this size. But more specifically, I like having a few decks this size, and this poker size specifically feels really usable to me. But let's talk about the Llewellyn, because this is really, I think, what started this. This has a very nostalgic vibe for me, this deck, but I never really bonded with it. It's beautiful. It's lovely. I want to love it because Dawn Michelle loves it. Do you guys ever have that feeling? But I never ever bonded with it. I've had it since basically it came out. I've had this, in fact, this should have probably been, I don't know when this was published, but I've had it for a very long time. And I think it's gorgeous. It used to have these giant borders. And then I saw that Kelly in the Truth and Story, right when I was first watching Tarot Tube, she had trimmed hers. Now, around the time that she had trimmed hers and I was getting into Tarot Tube, I was getting into live action role play a little bit. And I was like, well, I want a tarot deck that I can that can look kind of medieval, that I can use in role play. So I took my full-size, not yet trimmed copy of the Llewellyn, this deck, this physical deck you're looking at right now, and I tried to mess it up on purpose. I kind of tried to crumple up some of the cards and I tore them in a couple of places. The trimmed version is fine because, that was all happening to the borders. And I tried to beat it up to make it look, more vintage, and took it to a game. And that's how little regard I had for this deck at the time. I was like, it could be a good prop. And to be honest, after I trimmed it, I was like, this is so cute. And I took all the time to trim it. I trimmed it by hand. I edged it. I put the titles and the keywords on the cards. And every time I look at it, I'm like, yeah, it's really, really pretty. And it is legitimately beautiful. It's all based on Welsh mythology. I feel nothing when I look at this deck, though. And I feel like I should feel something. And I'm really attracted to Welsh mythology. I mean, there's so many reasons why I feel like I should love this. But for whatever reason, I've never bonded with it. And I really, truly feel like if I ever decide I want to bond with it, I'm probably going to want a full size. Like, look how pretty that is. It's so pretty. But I think I would probably want a full size that I could study with, But now I'm kind of second guessing. Like, do I just want to hold on to this for now? Like, I don't need to be in a big rush. It is really beautiful. I don't know now. Okay, let me talk about Notorious JBG, and then I'll come back to this, because I don't know. I'm suddenly second guessing, especially with that card. Okay. Notorious JBG. Really, the only reason these are together is because they were the same size. And I was trying to pare down this section of decks a little bit. But I love this deck. This is going nowhere. I think it's delightful. I love the choices that Julie made here. I think it's perfect. I have no complaints. I'm pretty sure I customized this deck already to myself. There were a few choices you could make for certain cards, and I put the backups away. So I love it. I love it. I love Jasmine Beckett Griffith's artwork. And again, I think Julie did an incredible job curating this and cropping it in, really helping us to focus on the meaning of the cards. I think it's brilliant. I love it. I love it. It makes me really happy. So this one's good. It also shuffles like a dream. It is slippy because it's linen, but I love linen cardstock. It's wonderful. So this one's definitely staying. This one's definitely staying. Don't mind the traffic. My window's open. It's summer. It is what it is. Okay, but now I'm second guessing my Llewellyn, and I think I'm going to... I have had this for so long, and there is some nostalgia. And maybe if I took the time to study with it, I don't need to be in a big hurry. And this particular copy is so mushed up with my personal energy that maybe I'll just sit on this one for a while. I think I'm going to keep it for now and just let it be a part of my mini collection and not agonize, because it just doesn't feel right. It's got some old spread cards that I even tested the marker on. It doesn't feel right for me to let this go right now. It feels like it's still mine. So I'm not going to overthink that part. I'm going to keep it. And yeah, so they're both staying. Okay, we have another mini combo coming up, the Oak, Ash, and Thorn mini, which is a prototype because the original, it's not out yet. I got sent this to share it with you guys, but versus the Tarot of Trees. So let me pull these out of their pouches and bags and things so you can see what we're dealing with. This is a custom-sized, that I made myself basically with Peggy's help, custom-sized pouch, the Oak, Ash, and Thorn mini. And the Tarot of Trees, this is an older edition, but it is the little pocket size. It's not the big giant one. Let me put up the poll so you guys can see what you thought. So as of this moment, the Oak, Ash, and Thorn mini is winning by 59%, and the Tarot of Trees by 41%. And remember, this is me asking you guys what you would do in this situation, which one you would keep. So most of you would keep the Oak, Ash, and Thorn mini, and 40% of you the Tarot of Trees. Okay, these do feel like they sort of fit a similar space for me. They both feel connected to nature. I do have, and this is where a lot of the comments came in talking about how I have the Oak Ash and Thorn full size. So maybe I should keep the Oak Ash and Thorn full size and the Tarot of Trees, this little pocket guy. Here's the thing about the Tarot of Trees. It is cute. It really is. It's very like Rider-Waite-Smith, but I like the tree energy. I think that's fine. I mean, the trees are kind of like, in a way, sort of humanized in a lot of these cards. But it falls just a little bit flat for me. Like, it reads fine. I like the bold colors. It's really adorable. But it's kind of like, it gives me feelings a little bit like the Spacious Tarot, which I've never owned for a reason. It's like, it feels a little empty of, not of life, because of course trees are full of life, but it feels a little empty of interactions, maybe, of that interpersonal feeling. Whereas in the Oak Ash and Thorn, we get these very dynamic interactions between the characters. And so I feel like if I want a mini nature-y deck, something to help me connect with the natural world, I feel like the Oak Ash and Thorn really sort of fits that bill for me. And then I was also thinking that when it comes to tree energy specifically, and this isn't in the poll, but I'm going to share it with you anyway. When it comes to tree energy, one area where I really feel sort of drawn to learn and to study and to connect with trees more is with the OOM system, which is on my list of things to study. And I recently picked up this Celtic Tree Oracle, which is very much about tree energy. At least it feels like it to me. And I know very little about OOM, so like, you know, take my word for it. But this delightful little set of cards, which I got for studying, really, like, look at this. This has tree energy, right? But it's about very specific trees and like the lore around that tree and like what that tree could mean in this Celtic divination system. So I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Like, this feels more rich and full of meaning, even though this is more brightly colored. But I feel like I can do more with these trees. Do you know what I mean? Like, it feels like there's more depth there for me to explore. Whereas with the Tarot of Trees, it kind of feels a little bit like, weirdly, a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, which is not a fair thing to call it because there's not even people in the cards. But it kind of hits me in that same place as an RWS clone. So I'm kind of like, well, you know, I could pull any deck and read it the way that I read this deck. It doesn't hit me in the feelings. You know what I realized? That's part of it. I realized as I'm recording this right now, part of it is I think I can't connect to my empathy quite the same way with trees. Not because I don't feel their vibes or their energy, but because it's not quite as relatable. It doesn't feel as, it's a little bit further away from me psychically. I don't know how else to describe that. So I feel like I'm missing a component in my readings. Much like when I read with the Rider-Waite-Smith, I mentioned how I feel like I'm missing layers, right? Because I have all the additional artwork layers to add on top of the Rider-Waite-Smith, which is already in my head. And like in this way, I feel like it's missing stuff. So I'm ready to let this go. Oh, I put these two in the keep. Wait a minute. I'm messing up my piles here. Hold on. I need to fix. I just got things mixed up. So if you guys were concerned, I'm going to fix it right now. Hold on, let me get out. That one's the going pile. That one's the staying. I think everything else is okay. I think I just put a couple around piles. We're fixing it though. Okay. So Tarot of Trees is going to go. That's the punchline of this little story. Oak Ash and Thorn Mini is going to stay. I'm really delighted to have this deck in a mini form. It is possible that it could replace my full size, but I doubt it. I don't mind having a mini and a full size of decks I really love, because when I have both a mini and a full size of a deck I really love, then I have options for what spreads I can use that particular deck in, which I happen to really, really like being able to do. So that's fine with me. I don't mind the duplication, but which seems so funny when I'm like trying to keep things curated. But if it's a deck I like, I want to be able to use it in more things. And so I can pull this now for a Celtic cross spread, for example, because it'll fit really nicely on my table. And I tend to reach for these smaller decks when I'm doing that bigger kind of spread. Okay, the next combo was definitely getting me into some trouble. I will let you guys enjoy the comments. Go to my community tab, scroll down for the poll. You'll see it. It got pretty spicy up in there. We have the Marielle Tarot, the first edition, versus the Spirit Keepers Tarot, the Revelations edition. So let me just pop up that poll. Oh my gosh. So at the time I'm filming this, I hope it stays long enough for me to grab a screenshot of this for the editing, but just know that at the time I'm filming this, it is exactly split 50-50 between Marielle and Spirit Keepers. Okay, let's talk about it. So a couple of things worth mentioning. So this is my second time with the Spirit Keepers Tarot. I did have the first edition, had spent 3 months with it, studying it and getting to know it. I thought it was spectacular, but I felt like it was a deck for a season and I passed it on. Later, when Annabelle came out with this Revelations edition, I did purchase it. But you might be able to tell by what I'm doing right now, pulling all these extra goodies out of the box. I haven't worked with this yet. I have looked through it, and it's beautiful, and I freaking love it. And I do have a new version of the Book of Maps, and I think it's really special. This feels like the thing that sort of had me push the buy button, if I'm being honest, is something Annabelle said about the Book of Maps in this deck. Something about how she wanted it to be kind of like an occult or magical or witchy social studies course in a way. That's exactly what it feels like. But I also know, because I know this from even the first edition, that you can just pull this deck out and just read it. And especially I feel like this version of it, I feel like Annabelle did an incredible job making sure that the images were at face value. If you don't dig into all the occult stuff, face value, they're very readable as a regular Rider-Waite-Smith, but just set in this really incredible world. I love this deck. I love the idea of this deck. And I have no shame about keeping it and collecting it and just having it and someday, hopefully, studying it. And that makes this something that I feel like I can treasure and enjoy, even if I'm not using it right this minute. The Marielle Tarot, which is equally as, I feel like, in its own way, has just as much depth. And the other thing these two decks really have in common to me is that they both draw on the Rider-Waite-Smith, the Thoth, both of which emerge from the Golden Dawn, and both of them also, I believe, I could be wrong, I know this one draws from RWS and Thoth, but very much Golden Dawn in its origins, as far as I know, with lots and lots of more than that. It's more than that, but that's in there. The Marielle, I believe, also draws on Marseille a bit. And so you might see a little bit more of the numerological stuff in the Marielle. Here's my feelings about the Marielle. Now, this is the first edition, and it's trimmed by hand with scissors before I learned how to evenly trim, and then edged in black. And I wrote on it in silver Sharpie, and I love how it turned out. This deck feels like a deck for a season for me. And I feel like my season with it is probably over. But there's something so powerful and unique about it. And I know that if I were to let this deck go, I would never be able to get this edition again. And in particular, I'm very, very fond of the first edition Judgment card. It feels like liquid transformative fire, like you're being wrapped up in this phoenix. And the Judgment card was changed in later editions, and I did not like it nearly as well. It had this kind of outlining to it that I was not fond of. And this also has the contentious Hierophant card in it, which I really, really love and have done a lot of work with. I love this Temperance card. I love this Five of Wands. I feel like I love this Six of Swords. I was going to say Cups, but I knew that was Swords. I love the Six of Cups. I feel like there's a lot here to unpack. This card is stunning, not just because it's a unicorn, but because of the type of unicorn. And there's more than 4 legs, and there's a whole thing here. But also just the fact that we're protecting or sort of guarding a broken heart kind of thing here. Anyway, this art is something. It's very, very unique, and I feel like it's a peek into a particular world and into a particular mindset, and there's a lot of numerological stuff you can get into in this deck. Okay, so it's good. It's really good. And there's the Hierophant card. This was so good for me for a time. I don't feel like I need it the way that I did, but it was really, really good for me for a time. And so this feels like a piece of my tarot history, a piece of my story. And so I think for that reason, I need to hold on to it. But I haven't worked with it or felt drawn to work with it in a very, very long time. And I don't know if that's going to change. But I think this is another one that, oddly, I was kind of thinking I might let the Marielle first edition go. But I don't think I would. I really don't. Now that I'm kind of faced with it, I'm like, no, actually, these are both staying. But they're both very powerful. And they both feel like they're decks that I have that I'm not really getting benefit from at the moment. I think I'm okay with that for this particular moment. We'll see how that pans out over time. But for now, I think I'm okay just sort of holding on to them and seeing what develops in the future. I feel like my this particular this or that has been a lot less brutal than some of my more recent ones. I'm sure that's going to be great for some of you watching. Next up, I am pairing the Wisdom of the Divine Feminine, which is one half of this double deck that I have in here. So the Wisdom of the Divine Feminine up against the Mystical Healing reading cards. This is a rock pool, I believe a rock pool deck. So that is what the backs look like. I will pop up the poll. So 66% of you would keep the Wisdom of the Divine Feminine, and 34% of you would keep the Mystical Healing reading cards. So the reason I paired these is because they actually serve for me a very similar function. And this is newer to my collection, and I think has possibly just knocked this one off of its place in what I have. So the Wisdom of the Divine Feminine has a very healing, personal growth kind of vibe to it, right? And it really looks you in the face and says, okay, here's some things to look at, here's some things to grow into. And with the Wisdom of the Shadow, its companion deck, which I also have, it, in my opinion, it's a companion deck. They work together to sort of give you the confrontation and then the nurturing to come out of that space. So there's a real cohesion to not only the artwork, which I really enjoy, and all the bright, vivid colors, but also to the way that the guidebook is written and the way that it holds your hand. And one of the reasons this deck makes me realize that I'm not using this one, which has a very different aesthetic, is because they both seem to come at you with a similar voice. This one also is kind of confronting and kind of healing and gives you suggestions on how to lift yourself out of that place, to boost yourself. And it's really a beautiful aesthetic, not one that I ever thought I would like, but I really ended up enjoying it a lot. And what I really enjoy in the guidebook, and these both do this actually, is there are sort of practices you can do. So if you pull a card and you're like, I want to work with this energy, like awaken your vulnerability, I want to work with that energy. In the guidebook, there would be a practice on the write-up for this card about how you can tap into that energy and use it and work with it. And Wisdom of the Divine Feminine does this too. Until Wisdom of the Divine Feminine came into my collection, I didn't know if I'd ever find another oracle deck that would really do that skillfully in that way, but I have. And with that in mind, I think it's okay to let this one go because I have this one now to sort of scratch that itch. And because I have this one in the situation where I have this combined deck that can just really powerfully work together and give me powerful combinations. If you saw my walkthrough of these two, you'll understand. But these work together really, really powerfully, and I love that about them, which is why they live together. So they kind of are like a combined deck, but I kind of use them in their separate piles, you know, that sort of a situation. Really, really, really good powerhouse combo. Because I have this, I really don't need this. So the Mystical Healing reading cards are going to go, and Wisdom of the Divine Feminine, of course, is going to stay. We're back to Lenormand for this next combo. We have cute Lenormands going up head to head. The Sparkly Lenormand by Kimberly San up against the cute little Lenormand. I forget the creator's name. I'm very sorry because I don't have a box here, but this one is a mass market, little adorable deck. So these are the two. Poll results, again, as of the moment I'm filming this, these are in a dead heat, 50-50. So y'all were as undecided as I was. But you can see, I think, why. Let me just share a little bit about these two decks. So this is the cute little Lenormand. It comes in a set with a really quite chunky hardbound book. And this is the Sparkly Lenormand, which is so freaking cute. This is, I mean, if you like Kimberly San's artwork, I mean, look at this. It's got like this pink edging. Let me zoom this in because these cards are smaller. Pink edging, really pretty backs, nice sturdy box. Lovely cardstock, feels really sturdy. It's very indie quality, right? Super, super cute artwork, but it's very cartoony. And there are a couple of cards actually in the, like the panda ring that says forever is so cute. The smiley cross throws me a little because, of course, the cross represents sort of a burden in Lenormand, so it kind of feels just disjointed to me just slightly in that way. The child card is like this big sunflower, so sometimes for a moment I'll think that's the sun card. But it's so dang adorable. It really, really is. It makes me smile. We have the bear card. But it's a very particular vibe and a very particular sort of approach. The ship is this like panda blimp. It's very Kim, right? It makes me think of her and the Way of the Panda Tarot and all the adorableness. This little book is so freaking cute. I mean, it's really delightful. But don't get me wrong. The tower being this like cupcakey thing, cute. The dog. The coffin, this one throws me because it doesn't feel coffin-y. I mean, I get it, but it doesn't feel like it to me. So yeah, really, really, really super cute. And I would say there's no way you would have been able to pry this out of my hands, despite the fact that I have not once reached for it for an actual Lenormand reading, at least as far as I can remember. I mean, I may have tested it a bit in the beginning, but yeah, it just kind of sits there being cute. And that's fine. It's adorable. I really do like it, don't get me wrong, but I don't use it. Whereas the cute little Lenormand, also cute, much plainer. It's also on a much thinner cardstock, very simple, like cheap playing cardstock. It's not linen, it's just flexible, thin, but it's very kawaii, and the symbols are very clear and uncluttered, which I tend to like when it comes to Lenormand. I tend to like these very simple, plain. This one's also got a bit of a modern feel. Everything feels exactly like it kind of should to me in my mind. I don't have any conflict with these cards. And wait till you see, there we go. So I'll show you yeah, here we go. So we have the Querent and the Partner card, which I love. You can see masculine, feminine vibes in there if you'd like. But interestingly, you have, I mean, like you don't have to, right? You can see it any way you want, but it's just jackets, like, you know. So I love that. It takes the gender out of it, which is great. But this is so cute. And the guidebook that came with it is wonderful. So it feels like a resource. The Rider card is a unicorn with a girl with pink hair. I mean, come on now. But it's very simple and clear, and everything on the cards. The only real beef I have, I guess, is that I like when the path card has two sort of paths, which it does here actually. You have a road, and then you have sort of off-road. You could go that way and go off-road. But it's implied, you know, it's not really explicit in the card. But anyway, this is a very usable and simple and clear and adorable little Lenormand deck. And so I'm going to be keeping the cute little Lenormand, and I'm going to be letting go of the sparkly Lenormand, because as cute as it is, it's just so specific to a particular aesthetic that I don't end up using it. All right, that brings us to our final pairing. It's a tough one, you guys. So we are going to be looking at the Book of the Dead Oracle by Scylla Conway versus the Cosmovisions Oracle by James R. Eads. Let me put up the poll. So at the time I'm filming this, 59% of you would keep Cosmovisions and 41% of you would keep Book of the Dead. Now let me explain. These are both covering a very, very similar concept for me. I'd actually never considered whether I wanted or needed a deck with this concept until the Cosmovisions Oracle came out. So full credit to James R. Eads for inspiring me in that way. The Cosmovisions is beautiful. I was so excited when this came out. I loved the theming of it. I loved the idea and the concept behind it. And I wanted so bad to love it. I really, really did. And I do. Like, look at that. Come on now. Rainbow blue holographic. Come on. But as I mentioned with the Prismavisions, this art style, as beautiful as it is, and I want to love it so bad. As beautiful as it is, it starts to look a little messy to me up close. It's not messy. I'm not saying that the art is messy. I'm literally saying my vision does something funny with it when I get up close. It's not that it's hard to see. I know that some of us will say it that way, but I don't think that's quite right. I don't think it's hard to see. I think it's that viewed at a distance, you can pick out specific details better. It's something about the way that the art is done. It's really beautiful. But anyways, okay, sorry, back to the point. The point is, both of these decks, like the Major Arcana, I shouldn't even call it that. Okay, so this is an Oracle. I can't get my words out. This is an Oracle deck. But it's fashioned after the tarot, right? So you can definitely use it like a tarot, and it lines up like a tarot, except for the Major Arcana is really telling the story of the afterlife, like of one particular view of what happens in an afterlife. Like, so the Fool, instead of the Fool, we start with death. And we go into the afterlife through the Major Arcana of this deck, which was the thing that really, really, really excited me, right? So the Hierophant is the Phoenix. And instead of the Chariot, we have the Spirit Plane. Right? Instead of Temperance, we have the Maze. And these are all things that you might go through. Life on Earth as the World card. So you see the journey from afterlife to reincarnation, which is super fascinating and interesting. The Death card here is actually a past lives or past life review, or however you want to look at that. A really exciting concept, and one I thought I was going to use, one that I thought I was going to use a lot. But it sat on my shelf not quite knowing what to be, because when I tried to use it, I felt like it wanted to read like a tarot, but it wasn't quite a tarot, and I didn't know what to do with it. It felt like it wasn't one thing, but it wasn't the other thing, and so it just hung there in this beautiful butterfly bag, being incredible, but not being used. And I was like, now what? And especially now what? Because I have this giant book, this beautiful, gorgeous book that has the Cosmovisions Oracle on this side, the Prismavisions on that side, and like all these beautiful full color images, and like this is just, it's an incredible system with an incredible guidebook, and I love it in theory. I just didn't love it in practice. And that's such a personal thing. But that's where I ended with this one. And then what happens is that I get the Book of the Dead. And this one ended up ticking all of my boxes for what I would imagine for a deck that would help walk me through the afterlife. This one does it. And it does it so powerfully and so beautifully. I did a video on this that will be coming out on the channel if it's not out already. I'm trying to think which is going to come out first. But this is an incredible, incredible, incredible deck. And it really echoes a lot of my personal beliefs about the afterlife. I won't say it's like 100% aligned, but it's the closest I've ever seen. And feels like it approaches the topic in the right, for me, the right way. And it's an oracle. It's very clearly an oracle. It's not overlaid over top of the tarot structure. So I don't feel like I'm trying to like fit it in to something else. Do you know what I mean? And so it just is this beautiful thing that has ticked all my boxes for what I could want for a deck that would help me look at what happens after death. I feel like this is the one. And it's the only one for me that I need. So with that in mind, the Book of the Dead will stay. And Cosmovisions, along with its beautiful book, will have to go. Which makes sense because, of course, if I'm letting the Cosmovisions go and the Prismavisions go, then, you know, they can go maybe together or something. Or each find good, loving homes. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But them and their book are going to go at least into purgatory for a time. And that is where I ended up. So let's do a quick tally up. Okay, the decks that are going... Okay, so that's 9 decks. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 9 decks that are going. And let's look at what's staying. And 16 decks that are staying. And James R. Eads didn't get totally ousted because I am keeping that green Glyphs Lenormand. So I'll still have a piece of James R. Eads' incredible work in my collection. It just won't be the Prismavisions or the Cosmovisions. So we can be sad about that, I suppose, but I'm really pleased with how this has turned out. I feel like I wasn't as harsh as I could have been, and I'm okay with that because I feel like I made good decisions I can feel good about. And my goings are not necessarily permanent, so I don't have to like panic. It's not like they're immediately running away from me or anything. So if I change my mind, I have an opportunity to pull them back out, pull them back into my collection, and that's always an option. So that, my friends, was this or that. Hopefully the results weren't too shocking. It wasn't too scary or tough to watch, but I do love what I love and I like to make use of what I have. So that is how we end up here. And I tend to do these pretty regularly and it's really, really helped. It's helped me to be sort of more careful about considering what to bring in, knowing that it may affect what I want to keep that's already in my collection. So oftentimes if I already have something I love in a category, it gives me pause before I buy a new thing in that same category. So it helps me to be mindful in general. And also it helps me to keep things manageable and not to get overwhelmed. I've certainly learned that there are definitely decks that come in for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. You know, it's that old quote. And it really is true. I feel like there's decks that come in to sort of teach me something or to be there with me through a part of my life. And then there's decks that, you know, are really just meant to be worked with over the long term. And I think there's very few really that are lifetime decks for me. But I think there's a lot where their season might be quite long. And that's great. I love that. So I'm going to enjoy what I have and continue to use the things that I have. But sometimes let myself keep things that I don't use all that often, like the Spirit Keeper's Tarot or the Marielle, because they're special or because they do something very specific. The Book of the Dead Oracle is one I bought knowing I wouldn't use it a lot, but that when I needed it, it would be there for me, and that's great. So that is what I have done here today. I think I've been successful at it. I hope you enjoyed watching. As always, thank you so much for spending your time here. An extra big thank you to the Unicorn Fam channel members for helping to support what I do. We do a lot of fun things in the Unicorn Fam channel membership, so if you're interested in that, you can click on the join button or the link in the description box to learn more about what we do. We do fun things, we do book club, we do readings, we do all kinds of stuff. So check that out. And for now, I'm going to get out of here. Peggy and I are about to go swimming, so I'm going to go get ready to do that. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, wherever you might be, and I will talk to you later. Thank you all so much, and may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye!